Oh, you're making me give it. Oh, baby, I can feel the rush of adrenaline. I'm not scared to jump if you want to. Let's just fall in love for the hell of it. Baby, just keep falling. I can feel the rush of adrenaline. I'm not scared to jump 'cause I want you. Let's just fall in love for the hell of it. Baby, we just keep falling.
What's up guys, the Anime Titan here, and I will be doing What If Deku Had a Evil Shadow Dragon quirk, part, I think 4? No, I think 5, I'm not sure. Sorry guys, I haven't recorded in a while, I had schoolwork and all of that jazz. So anyway, let's just have a recap. So last time what happened was Izuku had gone to the UA Sports Festival along with Toga, Darby, and Twice, as well as Eri, and they all had given a little bit of a speech to the heroes, which nobody actually was expecting, as well as Izuku's mom showing up and Izuku just plain out telling her that she's nothing to him. Izuku would also have told Toga that he loves her, and they would have proceeded to return back to the base, with them now having a temporary alliance with the heroes to stop All for One. So let's jump back into it. Izuku, Eri, and Toga would be back at the base with Natsuo and Fuyumi being there talking to Darby. Izuku would have just been there chilling with Eri and Toga when something unexpected would happen. A door would be kicked open, well, be flung open. The person being responsible for this is Bakugo, well, Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo would have been a little bit annoyed that he struggled to get the address of this place so much, and that the heroes would actually have told him to stay away, but he would not have listened and he would have gone there anyway. So Bakugo would have kicked open the door and barged in there, having his temper flared as well as small explosions going off in his hand. Izuku would be a little bit annoyed at this, but he wouldn't care much and would basically just look at Bakugo coming towards him. Hang on guys. Izuku would have just looked at Bakugo. Bakugo would then proceed to walk up to right in front of Izuku and then speak. You had a chance to become a hero, why didn't you take it? Bakugo would ask, a little bit angry and sad. Izuku would look at Bakugo asking, what the hell do you care? As Bakugo would actually not be surprised at that, seeing as this is how Izuku would have been speaking to him for a while now. He would have then replied with, it's my fault you became a villain. I want to take every chance I can to bring you back to the light, to make you a hero, Izuku. As Izuku would actually just chuckle at this a little. Bakugo would not understand what's going on, and he would say, and he would ask, what the hell's so funny, Izuku? As Izuku would reply with, oh dear Katsuki, don't you see? I don't want to be a hero anymore. If a hero is just anybody with a strong quirk, then I can become a hero whenever I want. But I'm a real hero. I'm saving those that need the help. Unlike you, fake heroes, who just save people who needs help in dire situations. I'm saving people who just needs help in general, whether it be emotional or physical. I'll always be there for the people that need it. As Katsuki would actually be surprised hearing that Deku was actually being a hero in his own way, helping those that needed it, not those who were out in public, not stopping crimes but helping people instead. Izuku would then look over to Eri and say, hey Eri, why don't you go play with Toga? Well, with Himiko. As Eri would jump up and say, yay! As Toga would then proceed to pick up Eri and they'd head outside Deku would then have Akuma slide off of his hand, becoming a small little dragon, as Deku would say, "Watch over her," as Akuma would nod his head and then flap his wings and go towards Eri and Toga. Akuma has asked Deku if he could become, Eri's personal protector, the one who would be there for her whenever she goes out, and Deku would have agreed. Deku would now have stood up and looked Bakugo dead in the eye and tell him, "Why are you here, Katsuki?" Bakugo would actually not have had a valid reason besides coming here to ask Deku why he didn't choose to become a hero right there and then. He could have become one quite easily, showing that kind of strength. Bakugo would have then replied with, "I wanted my friend back." As Izuku would have been a little bit surprised at this, but he would have replied with, "Your friend? What do you mean? We weren't ever friends, Katsuki. Remember? I was Deku for a reason." As Katsuki would then have a bit of a flashback on every single time he had called Deku, and would have a little bullied him, nagged him, and so forth. Katsuki would then look at Izuku and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." As Izuku would then say, "Yeah, right, Katsuki. The way you're brash, loud, and honest. Whatever you say, whatever comes out of your mouth is the truth 90% of the time. So I was a Deku, but now I'm not, and I don't need your help anymore." Katsuki would then fall down onto his knees, saying, "Please, at least forgive me. I can't live with this overwhelming pain inside me anymore, knowing that I took away your chance of being a hero. Please, I need your forgiveness, Izuku." Izuku would look at Bakugo and say, "Fine, do as you wish. I could care less." As this is also when Bakugo would say, "Well, what about your mom?" Izuku would then look at Bakugo and ask, "What mom? Never had one." As Bakugo would actually be shocked that Izuku was dead serious about his mom meaning nothing to him anymore. As Bakugo would say, "Come on, man, you gotta at least forgive her. I mean, she was afraid. She, she everybody was." As Deku would then say, "The woman that brought me into this world was warned that I wouldn't be able to control my quirk. It was uncontrollable at that age. She was warned by the quirk doctor, and yet she chose to go off of what other people had said instead of listening to her own reasoning. That means nothing to me. She means nothing to me." And I made that abundantly clear. As he would then decide to put his hands in his pockets, as he would walk off to where Eri and Toga were, towards the balcony, seeing as Eri and Toga had gone downstairs and started playing outside with Akuma. Izuku would have gotten to the balcony and he would have looked down and said, "This is my family." As Bakugo would have gotten up and slowly walked outside, as he would have seen twice in Toga, as well as Dabi just playing with Eri and Akuma. Akuma would have been flying around Eri ever so slightly, just looking like a baby dragon, just sitting on her head every now and then, and so forth. As Twice would have been sitting there near, just making sure Eri would be fine. As Dabi, he would actually be like a big brother to Eri. Natsubo and Fuyumi would also have been there, and they would have seen what attachment Dabi had to this little girl, so they would have accepted her as a sister as well. Bakugo would see the happiness from all of them, knowing that Izuku had brought them together and this was his chosen family. the family he would sacrifice everything for. This is when Bakugo would look at Izuku and say, I understand then. They're your family, because they know your pain. I'm sorry for causing most of that pain. As Izuku would look at Bakugo and I said quit it, would you? I don't need another sad story added to mine. Ugh, you heroes are annoying. Hang on, guys. Izuku would then have decided to turn around and walk downstairs with Bakugo following behind. He wanted to know what Izuku was doing all this time. As he would look around, he would have seen that they were actually hard working. They had basically made a job for themselves. They would have made furniture, and he would have seen all the tools that they would have used. He would have seen a little room in the back where Izuku would constantly be tinkering. Bakugo would just crack a small smile knowing that Izuku's doing almost anything he can to protect his new family. Izuku would make his way to the backyard with Bakugo and Tail, as Eri would see him and run up, giving him a hug, as she would say, Hey Izuku, what are you doing? As Izuku would then reply with a smile on his face, Nothing, Eri, just came to check up on you. As Eri would smile and give Izuku a hug, Izuku would bend down and return the hug, giving Eri a little kiss on the forehead as well. Eri's face would have lit up at this, seeing that Izuku cares for her so much. She would have cracked a massive smile, as she would have ran back towards Akuma, chasing him around the backyard. Izuku would have made sure that nobody would ever be able to hurt her, or Toga, or any of his new family. He made sure that they're close at all times, and he wanted them safe. Izuku was highly overprotective over those that he cared about, this being only those four and then the newly recruited villains. Izuku would have also gone back to the pier and saw that there are some people there that need the help. He would have singled them out and Izuku would have gone back to the pier, but this time he would have gone with Bakugo to look for the people. He would have singled some out and they would have teleported them back to the hideout. As Izuku would give him basically the rundown of what's going on. Bakugo would have seen what Izuku did firsthand, and he would have actually been quite surprised and happy to see that Izuku actually was doing what he said he was doing. Izuku would then walk over to Darby and ask, Hey Darby, how far is the bar going? As Darby would look at Izuku and say, We have at least another half month before the bar would be ready for installation and everything. As Izuku would nod. Fuyumi and Natsuo would look at Darby confused, wondering, what bar? As Izuku would then pull up the plans on the bar. The bar would basically be an open layout except for the the bartender's booth, where all the alcohol would have been stored. So there would have been tables as well as seats. Food would be served, seeing as there would be a kitchen and a bathroom as well. Izuku made sure that there would also be an upstairs for him to be working, or for him to just relax with his technically girlfriend and or wife. Maybe not sure yet on that one with Toga, because I personally haven't decided to either make her his wife or just his girlfriend at this point. Izuku would still be too young to adopt little Eri, so he would have waited just a little while longer before doing that. So I'm just gonna continue on with let's cut over to Wolf 1. Wolf 1 would have been pleasantly annoyed that Izuku just outed him like that after everything he did for the boy. Well, he didn't do much for the boy, he just helped him in the first bit for like a month, and then Izuku left. Shigaraki would have been annoyed as well, seeing as that kid just outed them like it was nothing. He would have told Kurogiri to find him, as Kurogiri would have tried searching, but he couldn't. This was one of this was Deku's doing. Well, Izuku's doing. He knew that Kurogiri was like a shadow, so he did tampered with his quirk. Izuku can't tamper with quirks, he can tamper with shadows, altering their shape and whatever. So, because Kurogiri is basically just a giant cloud of shadows, Izuku was able to tamper with Kurogiri's quirk, making sure he'd never be able to find Izuku again. Nor Toka, Dabi, or twice. Nor Eri, even. So, Kurogiri would have then replied that he couldn't find Izuku, or any of them anyway. Shigaraki would have been pleasantly annoyed, seeing as the brat got away, and he wouldn't be able to do anything about it. All for One would have just sighed. Well, not sighed, just mentally sighed. As he'd possibly just lost one of his strongest puppets, that being Izuku. Izuku was never his puppet, though. If anything, All for One was Izuku's puppet just for that short time. So Izuku would continue the rest of the week as normal, except that All Might would have come around to discuss things with Izuku. Izuku would have looked at All Might and asked what he was doing here, as All Might would say, "We're here to discuss with you what plans you have." As Izuku would say, "My plans are to help those that need the help, and to give them a home and a job. That's why the bar." All Might would have looked at Izuku, trying to find any lies or falters in his voice, but would have found none. So he would have known Izuku was speaking the truth, and that he would do as he said. All Might would look at Izuku and then say, "So, care to tell me your backstory? In more detail this time at least." As Izuku would have gestured for All Might to follow him up to his office, as he would have closed the door behind them and told All Might, "You can buff down now." As All Might would have done so, coughing out a little blood. All Might would have then have asked Deku, "How did you know about this form?" Izuku said, "Your shadow doesn't lie." As All Might would have realized that Izuku must have tapped into his shadow somehow. All Might would then sit down as he would proceed to listen to what Izuku had to say. As Izuku would basically go over the whole story again about Bakugo nagging him, his mother abandoning him, and him ending up in an orphanage where they abused him as well. All Might would have been surprised at this, as Deku would have said, "Yeah, it doesn't matter now anymore. What's done is done." As All Might would have said, "No, we can still shut down the orphanage." As Izuku would say, "No, don't shut it down. Just pull out the people that actually I'm just gonna start my own orphanage anyway." So All Might would have been confused hearing that Deku wanted to start an orphanage of his own. Deku would then say, "For all the kids that were mistreated and called villains, this orphanage will be there for them. I will help nurture them. I'll make sure they're okay. I will be a protector towards everybody who suffered under the name villain from birth, or from at least the age of 4. Well, basically from the ages 10 and under. After that, you can make your own decisions. I will raise them till they're at least old enough to fend for themselves before I'll let them go. If they choose to stay and help, that would be all the better. That just means I'll need to work up on more plans." All Might would then look at Deku, seeing that this kid was more of a hero than any other hero he has ever met. He would be sacrificing all of his time and efforts to save those that were punished brutally just because of the way things were. Izuku would then get up and walk toward All Might, saying, "If you can prove yourself, I'll try to heal that wound of yours." As All Might would have been shocked at what Izuku just said, saying, "That's impossible." As Izuku would then say, I healed all of Darby's burns. I just need you to be in the shadows. Then I can rip all of that out and plant it onto your shadow. All Might would have actually been surprised, saying that he can actually do that. All Might would have wondered how Deku would be able to transfer the well to get rid of his injury, and he would ask, how are you capable of doing that? Deku said, I'm not capable of healing you. I'm capable of transferring your injuries onto another. So All Might would have asked, what the hell, what do you mean by that? As Suzuka would say, Toya used to have burns all over his body. I transferred that to a different person. As All Might would have thought, what person? As Suzuka said, sorry, it's not a person anymore. It's a Nomu now. All Might would have been surprised, wondering, what the hell? You have a Nomu? As Suzuka would say, no, I took a Nomu. All Might would have been shocked that Deku was able to take a Nomu from All For One. And Deku would say, the Nomu has regeneration, so any injury I apply to it, it's fine, no matter what. Because All Might would be, I see, I understand now. So the rest of Deku's week would go as usual, with him just hanging out with Eri and Toga, and them shipping out more and more furniture, as well as making some furniture for the ball. Izuku would have, by this time, would have continued with what he was doing, and that would be just running a business. Endeavor would have come by and tried to speak with Toya, but Toya would have just basically cancelled out Endeavor with his work, as Endeavor would be hurt seeing that he caused Toya this much pain and he never knew about it. Endeavor would be, how do you say, what's the word? Actually disappointed in his actions. He would have realized that he was being a complete and utter failure of a father and a husband. So he would try to make things right with Shoto, Fuyumi, Natsuo, Rei, and Toya, but Toya wouldn't have given him the time of day to do so. Endeavor would have tried his best to speak with Shoto and try to help him, but Shoto, he would have accepted Dev a little by little. Fuyumi, being the kind-hearted girl she is, would have accepted immediately. Natsuo, being the younger brother of Toya, would have said, I'll accept your apology once Toya does. As he would have, Endeavor would have realized that Toya wouldn't accept his apology. Not right now, or nor in the foreseeable future, but he might someday. As Toya would actually decide that he would go visit his mother, his mother that's now in a mental hospital. Toya would have made his way towards the mental hospital, where the security guards would have seen him, and they would have tried to stop him, but Toya would have said, I'm not here to attack, I'm here to see my mother. As well as, didn't you hear? We're not fighting the heroes anymore. The security guards would just double check to make sure Toya is serious, and Toya would say, pass me a pair of quirk cancelling cuffs, as he would proceed to cut the quirk cancelling cuffs in half using his fire, splitting the chain, but he would put them on each side, each one of his wrists, cancelling his quirk, as he would proceed to go to Ray's room. As soon as the door opened, Ray's head snapped towards it, as she saw who it was. It was Toya. She hadn't seen him in so long. She was a bit afraid, a bit hesitant, because Toya had lunged at her and baby Shoto before using his fire quirk, but she wasn't sure if he would be fine, as he is, fine now, or if he'd still have that mentality. And that's when Toya would hold up his hand saying, quirk cancelling cuffs, you don't have to worry. As Ray's eyes would widen, seeing that Toya wasn't here to hurt her. As Toya would walk in and sit down on a chair opposite to Ray, As he would then say, "Hey mom." Ray wouldn't know what to say, but Toya would continue. I decided it's finally time to come visit. Um, I'm sorry for what I did. It's just, it was a little hard on me. Toya would say as, he actually feels really bad for what he did to Ray. He wanted to attack Shoto, not Ray. But he would apologize anyway. He'd say, I just came to apologize. I won't be taking much of your time. I hope you're doing okay at least. Sorry for all the problems I caused. As he would get up and be ready to walk out of the room when Ray would grab his hand and hug him, saying, It's fine. I understand. I'm sorry too. As Toya would say, it's not your fault. It's his. As Ray would understand that he meant Endeavor. Well, not Endeavor, but NG Todoroki. Toya would have decided that he wouldn't be wasting much more time, and he'd have said his goodbye and left the door once again. As he was walking out of the hospital, he would have seen something that angered him a bit, but he still had the quirk cancelling cuffs on, so he couldn't do anything about it. This would be NG Todoroki, the number 2 hero, Endeavor, without his hero costume on. Endeavor would see Toya and wonder what he was doing here, as he'd walk up to him and ask, "What were you doing here?" As Toya just looked at him with disgust and decided to ignore him. He would have walked off, but Endeavor would have persisted, getting in front of Toya and asking again, "What were you doing here, Toya?" Toya would look up at Endeavor with fury in his eyes, and he would say, "You're lucky I didn't have these quirk cancelling cuffs on, or I'd make that scar on, or I'd burn you." Endeavor would have been surprised that Toya would even say such a thing, and then he would look down to see that he actually did have quirk cancelling cuffs on. But they weren't regular, they were like bracelets now. Toya would say, "Yeah, whatever." As he would proceed to pull out the phone and text Izuku saying that he's ready to come. He's going to be returning back to the base soon. As Toya would have actually saved up enough money by this time to buy himself a motorbike, which he did. So Toya would get back on the motorbike as he would proceed to drive back to the base. As Toya arrived, the gates would open and he would be greeted by Natsuo and Fuyumi, who asked where he was, as Toya would then reply, "I went to go see Mom." They'd both be shocked that Toya actually went to go see Ray, as they would say, "Well, do you want to see Shoto?" As Toya would actually, he would flinch at the name, a little bit of anger flaring up inside him, but he couldn't use his quirk, so there wouldn't be any fire. He'd say, "Bring him around later. I still have the quirk cancelling cuffs on, so I won't be able to do much to the child." As they would look and see that, yeah, he actually was wearing quirk cancelling cuffs, but more like quirk cancelling bracelets at this moment. So they'd call Shoto and tell them to meet them here after school, and Shoto would do so. Bakugo would also be in a school, and he would be more distracted than usual, as I would have noticed, and he would have asked Bakugo directly in front of the class, "What the hell's on your mind, Bakugo?" As Bakugo would then say, "It's nothing, Aizawa sensei." This is when Mina would stand up and ask, "Is it about that Izuku kid?" As Bakugo's head would snap to the side and you could see anger visible in his eyes. Mina would have sat back down quite really quickly, as Aizawa would have said, "Calm down, Bakugo. This isn't the time or place." As Bakugo would then just get up and look all of them look at the entire class, saying, "None of you have the right to use his name." as they would have been shocked that Bakugo would say something like this, as he'd look down and say, "Not even I have the right to use his name." He would sit down and tears would start forming, but he'd quickly wipe them away before anybody would have seen, well, anybody except Aizawa, who's always awake, my G's, like Aizawa's boss. Oh, sorry, I'm just like a massive fan of Aizawa. The man's attitude, his laziness, the way he works. Oh, it's an absolute boss right there. So anyway, as Al would have seen this, and he would have continued with class. After class was over, he would proceed to call Bakugo, pull Bakugo aside and say, "Look, kid, he forgave you, didn't he?" As Bakugo would nod his head, not 100% sure, but he hoped Izuku did. Then Al would proceed to say, "Well then, earn his respect. Don't hope he'll give you respect again. Try to earn it instead. You can't hope to come back from what you caused. Neither can his mother. But the least you can't hope the least you can do is hope for him to respect you as a person, not as a hero, not as a friend, just as a person, another loving being." Bakugo would understand where Aizawa is coming from and would agree. He'd quickly run off in the direction of the Izuku's base, as he would see Shoto heading in that direction as well, as he'd immediately stop next to Shoto and ask, "Where the hell are you going?" The Shoto would say, "I'm going to where my sister and brother sent me the coordinates. Well, sent me where to meet them." As Bakugo would look at the coordinates and picture that they sent him, and he would have realized that that's Izuku's base. He would have wondered what his sister and brother were doing there. So he would have told Todoroki to hurry up. Izuku hates people coming late. As well, no, Bakugo would have told Todoroki to hurry up because the leader of the shadows hated when people show up late, especially late in the afternoons, because that's when he prefers to play with, well, his girlfriend and his adoptive daughter, I'm thinking. Not sure, Bakugo would say. As Todoroki would realize his brother and sister are with the so-dubbed villain, the leader of the shadows. So we would run as fast as he could to get there, just to see that Natsuo and Fuyumi were sitting next to Toya, laughing. As he'd walk up to them, and Darby's anger would have, they would have seen Darby's anger flare up at the sight of Shoto. This is when Shoto would ask, "Why did you guys call me here?" As Fuyumi would say, "Hey, Shoto, this is our oldest brother, Toya Todoroki." As Shoto would look shocked seeing Toya, saying, "Impossible, he's dead." As Shoto would not have believed the news that when they said that Toya was still alive. But it's clarified this is Toya. Shoto would then say, "Impossible. He's been dead for how long now?" As Natsuo and Fuyumi would say, "No, it's him. It really is." As Shoto would actually want to get to know Toya, but Toya would have been a little cold towards Shoto. Shoto would not understand why, but then he'd remember back to Darby's speech, as he would understand that Darby actually wanted their father's respect and attention, but he stole that from him. As Shoto would want to apologize, but Darby would say, "It doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. I've got a new family now. I don't have a father. I'm like an older brother to all of them. So it's my job to make sure none of them get hurt, as well as to make sure that Izuku doesn't suffer any further. Not like I did, or any of them did." As Shoto would realize that Darby doesn't care about what had happened. He's moved on. He's moved past that. So Shota would try to as well. Shota would then speak with Darby for a little while, and he'd actually find a mutual ground with Darby. Well, sorry, Toya. He would have found mutual ground with Toya, and they would not have been like brothers, but more like new friends, so to say. A little awkward, but like you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. So the way the time's looking, I think I'm gonna cut it off here. I'm sorry, this was much more of a filler episode, but I do think every now and then fillers are necessary, seeing as they do lighten the mood. So I'll see y'all in the next video. Anime Titan signing out. Peace.